From architecture to painting and sculpture, literature to live music and theater. Radio 111 presents Bonnie G and Brian Mendoza with The Desert Scene, your connection to culture and entertainment in the desert cities. Here's Bonnie and Brian.
And welcome to The Desert Scene. I'm here with my fabulous co-host, Brian Mendoza, who's running the board and doing all kinds of great stuff. And really excited to have our guest today, Chip Prince, who I just met a couple of weeks ago. And he is playing the piano for this wonderful project we're doing at the Palm Springs Cultural Center called Razzle Dazzle, which the first one is March 31st. Hey, Chip, how are you?
Hey, I'm great. Glad to be on the program.
Yeah,
nice to meet Brian too.
Yeah, Brian's my fabulous co-host. We work really well together. So, I am so excited about this thing partly because in our first show, I'm working with three guys who've all been on Broadway, which I have not even. And Brian was asking me, this is a great way to start, some of the stuff that you've done. So, give us a couple of stories, a couple of shows that you've played on Broadway, and a little bit of your Broadway experience.
Well, in the early 90s, I did some touring with shows like Les Mis and Miss Saigon. But then I decided to move to New York in 1998, and I was super lucky. Like right out of the gate, I had an opportunity to be a piano sub in Ragtime and a couple other shows. Mm-hmm. But Ragtime turned out to be a good thing for me. And I wound up taking over the piano job on that show for like a year. So that was very cool. I also did La Boheme on Broadway, the Baz Luhrmann version. So it was the opera. It was in Italian, but it was on Broadway. It was very interesting. Mm-hmm. What else did I do? I also did a lot of subbing in shows on Broadway. It was fun. I subbed in Les Mis. I subbed in A Chorus Line. I played Chicago exactly once. That's a story, but I won't tell it now.
Okay.
And some other cool stuff. I got to meet a lot of interesting people. Oh, yes, Porgy and Bess with Audra McDonald.
Oh, my gosh. Wow, she is fabulous. Yeah. So what, well, let's back up. We're going to back up and then we'll go forward. So let's back up. Where are you from originally, and did you start playing piano at like 4 or something?
Yes, I did. I'm originally from a very small town in New Hampshire, way up north, Lancaster, New Hampshire.
Okay.
And I had a couple of sisters that played piano, had taken lessons, and when I was very young, I heard them playing, and I said, "Ooh, I'd like to do that." And so I went and started picking out things on the piano, and so I was playing from about age 4, and didn't have lessons until I was 9, and they only lasted a couple of years. But I was good enough, and it was a small enough town that I got asked to play for everything. So I learned by doing. Mm-hmm. And in high school, I was playing for the junior high chorus and the high school chorus.
Right.
And if there was a minstrel show or something, which we still did in those days, then I would play for that. And like I say, I learned by doing, and then I went to college and pursued it.
Yeah. And so where did you go from New Hampshire? Did you go straight to New York, or was there some stop along the way?
Oh, there were a couple of stops along the way. I went to Brigham Young University, so I was in Utah for a few years. Mm-hmm. And I took way too long to get my degree because I kept being in performing groups, which was part of my education. I don't regret that at all. Mm-hmm. I moved to Salt Lake City, and a chance connection with a friend who was working on cruise ships got me a cruise ship job. So I worked on 3 different cruise ships. This is 1989 and 1990. Mm-hmm. Got some good experience there doing shows and playing for cocktail music, learning to be a better jazz player. And then after that, I moved to Palm Springs in 1990. Mm-hmm. And then almost immediately got a touring job, and so wasn't here very much. Mm-hmm. So that was in the early 90s. And then in 1998, I finally dared to try New York, and I wound up being there for 22 years.
Wow.
Although again, a lot of that time was touring.
Yeah.
I was working in the city, but I think I did more touring than I did working in the city.
Mm-hmm. And then when did you come back here to Palm Springs kind of to stay for, hopefully?
Well, even before the pandemic, I was beginning to notice that work was slowing down for me a little bit. No complaints.
Yeah.
But, and New York is an expensive place to live.
Yeah.
And rents kept getting higher. And so it just made sense for me to move to a place that I already owned
Yeah.
and get rid of that extra expense and everything. And so just as I was on the point of making that move, then the pandemic hit, and it was like, that sealed the deal. It's like, okay, gotta do that now and retire. So I retired, and almost immediately I'm like sort of unretired now because I'm getting called to do wonderful projects like yours.
Yeah, and you also, let's see, Gay Men's Chorus, right? And was it Desert Theatricals? You've been playing for a couple other groups, yes?
Yeah, well, I'm singing in the Gay Men's Chorus, and I have some duties there. Once in a while, if they need an extra pianist for a rehearsal, I do that. And Desert Theatricals has had me play a little bit of audition piano for them, and they've got rehearsals coming up for Forum. A funny thing happened on the Women's Forum that I will do some rehearsal piano for, just to fill in, you know. It takes a village, and we have a village of pianists handling that show.
So would you say that right now you've kind of achieved the balance that you wanted between, a reasonably priced place to live, a beautiful place to live, low stress, but working when you want to? Or have you kind of gotten that balance?
I think I'm still finding that balance. It's, when you become accustomed to a slower lifestyle and think, okay, I could live like this. And then things start opening up again and the phone starts ringing. It's like, oh, I'm going to have to get up in the morning and caffeinate myself again and run around and, and like I'm driving a car now. I was 20 years of taking subways everywhere. Yeah. And so, I have to judge distances. I live in a part of Palm Springs where it takes a while to get to Rancho Mirage and Palm Desert. I mean, it's not a long distance. It's not like an L.A. commute. Right. I do have to allow time to get places. Yeah.
So I want to go to the music. You do. Have you? So you almost strictly done Broadway? Have you done jazz and other things as well? Or are you more just kind of a strictly Broadway guy?
I would say my bread and butter has been Broadway. Okay. I started, as kids do, as learning classical, and I loved classical. In fact, I was, up until college, I was somewhat of a classical snob. But I quickly learned I was not going to be a concert pianist, like a soloist. I got more kicks from accompanying people. And I did, I accompanied people in their recitals, opera arias and art songs and that sort of thing. Also violinists and flutists. I got to do some of that literature. But then along the way, I started to get opportunities to play for shows. Yeah. And that was where the money actually came from. I thought at one point I might become involved with an opera company. But instead, I wound up doing Broadway things. And also, I decided, I need to probably learn about jazz and find out how to do that. So I'm not what you would call a jazz pianist. I can fake it enough to do what needs to be done in a Broadway show if there's some jazz in it, if that makes sense.
God, yes. So I've always said, I'm a singer, and I took 8 years of piano, and I learned how to read music, which is helpful as a singer, and I can pound out jingle bells. That's about it. I mean, as far as my piano skills go. But what would I'd love to hear from you. There's definitely a difference between someone who's a wonderful pianist and someone who's a wonderful accompanist. So, it's two different skills. It's good to be but some great pianists aren't that great at accompanying. So, other than just, I guess it's being able to follow a singer, what would you say is the main difference?
Yes, following a singer, also being able to stick with a groove if the tune you're playing has a groove. A lot of solo pianists, because they spend 6 hours a day in a practice room or just practicing on their own or whatever, they forget how to interact with other musicians. And that might mean that they're moving the beat around, they're speeding up, they're slowing down, And there's certainly a place for that, and but they're doing it on their own. They're not necessarily getting practice at breathing with another person,
right,
and
right.
paying attention to that. Now, sometimes we have to, like, say I'm playing a jazz standard or a standard song, and the singer that I'm with back phrases. Mm-hmm. Now, if your audience doesn't know what back phrasing is, that's when the singer maybe doesn't quite stay with the beat.
Right.
And
right.
And I used to be, when I was younger, I used to be the kind of pianist that would say, oh, she's taking more time with this phrase, so I need to take time with her. And sometimes that's the wrong thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I need to just lay the beat down, keep it going. The singer will do what
their
she
own
does
thing,
or what
yeah.
he does,
mm-hmm.
and what they need for me to do is to provide that structure.
Yes.
So it's been quite a trick learning when to do which thing.
Mm-hmm.
But that's fun. I enjoy that challenge.
Well, I am so excited to be working with you and Jeff Barnett. And our first show, Razzle Dazzle, is March 31st, Thursday, March 31st, at the upstairs on the second floor of the Palm Springs Cultural Center at the VIP Lounge, 5 to 7:30 p.m. No cover, 2-drink minimum. Come check it out. We're going to be monthly. Our first one is March 31st. Come meet Chip and hear his wonderful music. I'm so excited to be working with you. And thank you for being our guest today. You're an interesting guy. I'm sure we're going to hear more stories from you later.
Thanks, Bonnie. I look forward to the show, and yeah.
All right, Chip Prince, he's fabulous. Thank you so much, and we'll see you guys next time on The Desert Scene.